there is something to be said about when you are going into the phase of building out your own daily schedule. We run away from that because of the poor experiences and what our memory remembers and the emotional attachments that are associated with our memory. So when you think about an alarm, you only have negative associations with that. When you think about a routine, you only have negative associations with that. The way that you get around this is start creating a better version of that thing. Welcome to the Video Simplified podcast, where I help you simplify the video creation process to help you reach wider and connect deeper with the people that need you the most. From learning to use your camera to simplifying video strategies to help you grow your brand and share your vision using video. So let's jump right into today's episode. What is up, entrepreneurs? Welcome back to the Video Simplified podcast with me, your hostess, the mostess, Diana Galadney. This week, we are continuing in a conversation where I talked about before about bouncing back on a previous episode, bouncing back after you failed, and a few other episodes that kind of talk on that, because while the fourth quarter, that September, October, November, and then you start getting into October, November, December, that those last few months of the year, especially again, that last quarter of the year, we really find where more people are starting to focus on their goals, more people are starting to focus in on the things that they care about most, so they can make changes for the beginning of the next year. So in this case, based on the timeline of this episode, would be 2024. If you're watching or listening to this in 2024, Happy New Year. But if you're watching it at the time we're producing this show, then you still have time. You still have time to set goals. You still have time to start making corrections to things that have been stressful, didn't go quite the way that you hoped or would have planned for the other new year that's on its way, which for a lot of people, if we're just being honest, let's just get the elephant out the room. The date changes, but unless you change, things won't change. And this is where overcoming your creative blocks can help you revolutionize some of these goals, actually achieve them, to start doing the things that you really want to do, the things you truly care about, and start making the change and the impact that you truly desire. Now, when we think about consistency, when we think about the ability to keep producing, publish, those exports, not just on the timeline for like a video editing pro, but that takes some stuff out of you, some energy out of you, takes some emotion. It takes time away from your family and other commitments that you may already have that virtually could be more important than what you're doing in that moment. And so you opt to do those things. And too many failures, too many times back to back, it's stressful. It's draining. It's really going to draw a lot out of you. So you have to constantly be putting something in. You need more inputs for the amount of outputs that you're giving, and creativity does that. But that should not be a negative. Creativity should be a double-edged sword in that it fuels you, but then you're also giving, or what have you. So it's creating a cycle, a fluid cycle of creativity that is healthy, not one that's not. I've been really journaling a lot. I'm already working on my next book, and I'm thinking about a lot of things that are around the creative process. Actually, I say my next book, but it's really my next book series that I'm focusing on. The One Right video was something that I felt like I needed to put out first. And then this next series of books that I'll be putting out won't be as dense as that one was, but I needed to cover a lot of ground for my authorship. So now I feel more free at liberty to move into some of these other topics that I want to talk about. And the mindset and the mentality that creators go through is something that I'm very passionate about, because that controls a lot of what you do. Sometimes you do have to will yourself into a better way of life, but other times you just don't have the will. That's where people get burnt out. People get exhausted. People have consistency issues. And when you really think about it, sometimes you don't have consistency issues. Sometimes you have commitment issues. They've just been masked with other symptoms of things that you really need to deal with. Sometimes you don't have creativity issues. You just really have not given yourself the energy or the grace to take a break. And it's all of these different things that surround being a content creating entrepreneur that I think are very important. So today I wanted to touch on overcoming creative blocks. So the first of that is establishing a healthy creative routine as a content creating entrepreneur. We're all busy. Everybody has something that they could be doing should be doing, or that your mind is going like you're physically doing one thing. Like imagine I'm doing this podcast right now, but I'm thinking about writing. So I'm mentally distracted. I'm not being present. With establishing a routine, a daily routine or ritual, this is something that I was just sharing this today in the vlog clip that I was posting. I'll put a link to the vlog channel and the information card in the description down below. And if you're watching, listening to this, the show notes as well, I'll put that as well. But I was thinking about the routines that we create, and sometimes the overthinking can just derail you before you even get started. Establishing a healthy routine, no matter if you work a full-time job, if you work part-time and the other half of your time is committed to being a content creating entrepreneur, or you're full-time and maybe you're still trying to find the vein of stuff of the what you're doing, but again, it's becoming more draining. You have to learn to master the mundane and create a healthy routine. This is next stuff I'm going to talk about. I think I talked about this in some of the bits because what I think I'm going to say, sometimes what I do record and sometimes what makes the cut and the edit doesn't always line up. So sometimes I'm like, I think it's in this episode. But for me, when I was talking about the episode of me quitting my job, there's a lot of emotional sacrifices, physical sacrifices, financial sacrifices that have to be made in order for you to achieve the goals that you want. And you have to learn to embrace discomfort. However, there is something to be said about when you are going into the phase of building out your own daily schedule. We run away from that because of the poor experiences and what our memory remembers and the emotional attachments that are associated with our memory. So when you think about an alarm, you only have negative associations with that. When you think about a routine, you only have negative associations with that. The way that you get around this is start creating a better version of that thing. It can simply be this. I noticed that when I would set my alarm for work, and this is how I established a healthy routine, healthy daily routine. I noticed that when I looked at my alarm for what wakes me up in the morning was still set to what I had, and this is some years ago now, set to what I had for when I worked my full-time job at the bank. You guys heard me talk about this before, but I had to really think about it. I'm like, I hate this tune. I hate this chime. Every time I think about it, I still think about the way that I feel based on when I had to wake up and go to a job that I had grew to hate, drive to a job that I wasn't making enough money for me to do the things that I really wanted to do, and didn't have the time to be doing the stuff that I'm doing now. So the life that I live now is the one that I was hoping that I would be able to live at some point before, you die. Because you're like, Dag, how long is it going to take? And so something as simple as changing your alarm in the morning, yes, you do have to audibly get used to the thing that wakes you up and like, well, I picked that one because it's annoying and it makes me want to get up. It doesn't have to be a negative association in order for it to work. What I started doing is changing it to an audio program. This particular one, I've been listening to this one for years. I think it's been close to a decade now. Timeline adds up mentally. I think it's close to a decade now. And it's called The 10 Attitudes of Leadership Development by Miles Monroe. The 10 Attitudes of Leadership Development by Miles Monroe. And so for a time when I was working, I was starting to change my mind and my mindset around, if this is not what becomes my day-to-day thing of what I do for the rest of my life, what does that look like? Who is she? How does she sound? How does she feel? How does she think? All of these things were extremely important to me. And so I started to go through all of that. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't wake up feeling like this. I wouldn't wake up saying, oh, hell, like I got to get up again. And it's like, it's just waking up feeling bad, even if you slept great. Well, how can I start to love waking up in the morning, love feeling energized, love all of these different things? Simply changing what I hear when I wake up. Then it's like you have the days where you do need something that's a bit more aggressive to wake you up. Just set multiple alarms on the watch, on the phone, if you actually have an alarm clock device or the Alexa person or the Google Assistant. You can set them to chime, so now I have multiple things. And sometimes that's not even enough, depending on how tired I am. But I started to change the way and look at the things and just evaluate what are the things that I already hate in my everyday workflow of life. And for me, the first one was the alarm. So I started to make changes to that, to my daily routine. So learning to master the mundane is really in understanding the things that you love to do in the day and the things that you hate to do during the day. And for me, the things that I was hating were things that I could replace or I could delegate to somebody else to do. So for today, I was thinking about like, oh man, it's like the podcast episodes, the video episodes. It's like we have a ton of them sitting in the backlog that just need thumbnails. And I'm like, why am I sitting on this? I'm like, I just simply need to sign for the work to be done and it would get done. And so I'm like, why am I overthinking about this? Let me just do that. And so I did that. And that helped take reading this book called 2X is greater than 10X. And it's like, that is a 2X task. It's like to get further along in what you're doing to 10X your results and get to where you really imagine yourself to be means you got to stop doing the 2X things. That's a 2X task versus a 10X task is the things that only I can do. My imagination, my creativity, me putting in the work, me being on camera doing the things, me getting better ideas, me increasing my creativity. And so you can learn to master the mundane by changing what you consider quote unquote mundane. It doesn't mean you have to hate it. It just means it's part of the daily routine. So when you establish a schedule and things that align with the goals and stuff like that, you're scheduling yourself for success. And I think what comes along with that is giving yourself some grace. When I think about how I have had to live to a point, dealing with the stage 4 endometriosis and all of that stuff, some days I don't have it in me. I just don't. I don't have it in me to get up still at 5:15 in the morning. I need to sleep and I need to rest. Or maybe I mentally am together, but physically I need the rest. Because I can only push myself to a point, and then past that point, I can't do anything else. And so it's like, it's wiser to take eat something, take some medicine, or sometimes just take the medicine, and then lay back down. And then I'll give myself till 9 or something like that o'clock, get up, and then start the day at 10. And that doesn't always mean that I extend the day out just to still make it the number of hours that I need to work or whatever. So sometimes it's like giving yourself some grace, because the days when I'm on and I'm working, I'm on. Because I physically can be. And sometimes you do have to push beyond your best and do what's required. But there are some times where you have to give yourself some grace. And only you really can truly identify that, to where maybe you need to increase your level of commitment to what you're doing to get the goals that you want to set for this in the next year and whatnot. But other times it's really about thinking through, what can I tighten up on? What can I be better at? What are the things where I'm lacking, not to be harsh on yourself or critical of yourself, but what are the things I'm not doing so well in that if I changed would put me further along? So give yourself some grace on those days where you really can't. Well, all of us have our own crosses to bear, but give yourself some grace on the days where you really can't, but also knowing where to push those limits. Like, I can do some more. I can, and pushing beyond sometimes your best and what currently has been your best. And sometimes your best has become what's comfortable, and start doing what's actually required. The other thing when it comes to overcoming creative blocks is do something with the ideas that you have. Sitting on them is giving you creative constipation. Literally giving you creative constipation. Do something with it. Hoarding ideas goes nowhere. It does nothing. It means nothing to hoard them. You can have the best life-changing idea. It never will change your life if you do nothing with it. Hoarding ideas is ridiculous. Now, I'm a pen and paper kind of a person, so I can share with you what my personal experience is in real life of what has helped me. If you've watched any of the vlog channel, then you would have seen like my biggest thing on a day-to-day basis and week to week, Post-it notes, sticky notes, all over the place. And I'm like, idea. And I'm going through. I was like, I had to think, like, I've talked about this before on previous episodes, like closing loops, meaning what's something that's an open loop that becomes a problem that we have to deal with, that creates another problem or creates backup and a backlog of things? Well, an open loop is the Post-it notes. And I'm like, I need to stop this because there are some things that are just a thought that I want to capture, because I'll capture all my thoughts. That is a big rule with me. I capture all my thoughts, and I've been like that for years now because I don't know which ones are going to do, and I'm not prejudging them. I'm just capturing them. So I make it easy to do that. So for me, that's on my Apple Watch. I have the voice memos app, so I can tap that. And then that auto syncs between my computer and my phone and stuff like that, so I can easily access that stuff anywhere. Then I have where if I'm writing something down, then before I go straight to a Post-it note, I now have a process. There are some things that do need to be a Post-it note because that's a today thing, or that's a in the next hour or two thing, or something just like a heads up for the week that I need to be aware of. Based on that, then I'll put that. So right now there's a sticky note on my monitor letting me know about something that I need to be focused on for this week because it's happening next week. Great. That's just a constant awareness so I can stay keeping that top of mind. Having that on my watch wouldn't help me. Having that on my desktop wouldn't help me. It's just something I need to visibly see. So that works. But instead of just logging everything to a Post-it note, I'm like, is this something that needs to be put into the calendar and actually scheduled for it to be done? Is this maybe a not due this week or today kind of a thing, but this is something that's whatever. I'll put an arbitrary date of the when and put it on the calendar and put some reminders. Maybe I give myself a week or two heads up just to see if it's still valid. Then at that point I can cancel it or I can actually follow through with it, but I put it on the calendar somewhere so that it has life. It has a day when it should come to life, because it's something I know I want to proceed with, or I'm pretty confident that I want to proceed with it. Or it's a thought and idea that I want to explore and go deeper within myself. And so I'm going to put that in my journal. And it's something I need to go through and process layers deep. And that keeps me from putting it in a Post-it note and just having a pile of Post-it notes of those things only. Now, do I still acquire them? Yes, but that's a great way for me to just close the loop. Instead of just defaulting to a Post-it note, it's like, where would this go anyway? It's either going to become something I actually do or become something I need to think more about. And I want to exhaustively think about this. And I journal my stuff out. And so I'm like, okay, so I'll write this in the journal. And when it's time for me to go through and journal for the day, that's something that's a prompt for me to go ahead and start I'm writing and exploring more about that idea. Or I'll just stop for 5 minutes or so and write what I'm thinking in that moment. And it's like, I'll think about this some more later. And that's it. It's a couple sentences. And that becomes a Post-it note that doesn't even have to be created or whatever because I've closed the loop. So a lot of that creative block is dealing with the creative constipation, and you can have video ideas all day. I talked about this in my book, The One Right Video. I definitely say that my best-selling book, The One Right Video, where I shared how I deal with my ideas, my creative ideas. Just to give you the quick heads up on that was I have my capture, I have my in progress, and then I have my done folder. The capture is all of the ideas that are video ideas because I'm not judging them. And I'll categorize that now because there's different stuff that we're all doing as content creating entrepreneurs. So one may be the podcast, one would be the regular YouTube channel videos, one may be different vlog ideas, one may be shorts. And so based on those different ones, then I'm like, okay, if this is a shorts idea, then I put that there. So my skits is one, I have one floating through my head now. I'm like, I catalog that idea because I'm like, I think I'm going to do this one soon or whatever. But it's just sitting there in the capture folder. There's no stress and it's not a Post-it note kind of thing. So it's different. So that's it. It's been logged is not versus lost so that when I log that idea, I can always go back to it. And I'll add in some notes sometimes. So if I search, which is why I like to put this in my notes app. So when I search, that idea comes up. So I'll say, bring up the idea about such and such, or because it's not an AI thing yet, but I'll type it in, go ahead and give me the results around X, whatever the keyword phrase is around that idea. And I'll put, when I'm typing in that idea, all the things that make sense of what I would say if I first was waking up in the morning. It's like, what was that idea about such and such? I'm going to give myself all the trigger words that I would say if I wasn't thinking about it in the moment. So recently just finished the Sony ZV-E1 video settings video, tutorial video. So for that, I'm like, I'll put in like, make the video about the Sony ZV-E1. Let's say that's the title, because that's the idea that I'm logging in the moment. Remember to make that. And then I'll put best settings for creators, creator settings for setting up the camera, optimizing it for video, whatever, all the different things I might say on a given day in a moment, so I can make sure I can find it. And that's always worked for me really well. So doing something with the idea, doing something with the thought, keeps me from having creative constipation, which keeps me from having a block, because another big block that creators run into is the fact that you now have all these ideas and you don't know what to do with what. Again, I talked about all the stuff in my best-selling book, The One Right Video. Links in the description, and go to onerightvideo.com to get access to that, with the audiobook coming very soon. Now, last point here is accountability. You can overcome a creative block with accountability, sharing what your ideas are. My friend Jessica Stansberry, she recently started her vlog channel, and she shared her big, hairy, audacious goal with her channel. And that's to hurry up and run to 100,000 subscribers on her vlog channel. And I'm like, that is so dope. And I'm like, why didn't I think of something like that? And she's making her different videos and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, that's awesome, because that gives her public accountability, even of which she mentioned in the video. Well, sharing your goals, the deadlines, what the progress is, that's something like that, that's obviously public. It's something that you can do to hold yourself accountable. The other thing, thankfully, me and my best friend are content creating entrepreneurs. We both have businesses. We both are in the same vein of stuff, obviously not cameras, but we do the same kind of work. So there's a lot of things that we understand and that we get, the same books, same videos, same whatevers. We understand each other's struggles, so you don't feel quote unquote alone. Maybe your best friend isn't into all that stuff, but you got to get in community with people that get what you're talking about. They understand the day you're having a bad day. You need to just go through for those 15 minutes of the day, reply to YouTube comments, and the first one you see, terrible, trash in a bag comment, and you got to deal with that. And then you just like, I don't even feel like it. I'm just ready to delete the whole channel, blah, blah, blah. And then if you're venting, they can hold you accountable to, it's like, okay, are you going to be committed to your feelings, or are you going to be committed to getting done what you need to do? Because you can skip or delete that one and move on. Or just not reply to it, ignore it, hide the user, whatever, is necessary, and then move on. Don't get stuck majoring in the minor. Don't get lost in the sauce. Having creative friends that can say stuff like that to you in those moments when you're not necessarily in a strong state of mind, but a weaker state of mind in the moment, can help. When you're going through those creative struggles, it can help. So having and sharing that public accountability is extremely important. Now, here's the other thing that, and this talks a bit about some of that public accountability. When I went to Ecamm's Creator Camp, got my mug right here. I've been using it daily since I got it. I love it. Put this up to the camera so you can see that. I love that. I was a camp counselor, and this is their first one, their first event. And you know what was really amazing was the fact that per cabin, which even you can see in the back corner there, it's our cabin thing. It's like a little foam board or what have you. I need to find some place to put that up. But we were able to spend time with all of those that were in your cabin in English, in your group, in your community. All of those people that were in your cabin and on your team, we talked to each other. We hung with each other. We ate with each other every day of this event. And we were able to spend time with each other. And so as a camp counselor, I'm thinking about how can we, just further make these relationships that we're building even deeper. And so I decided to, before I was even thinking about this stuff before we got there. And so I had created a Instagram group chat because I didn't want it to be the green versus blue bubble thing, because I thought that was ridiculous, because then it impacts how your images come through, or GIFs and memes or videos, and it's just dumb. Plus we could send all that stuff, and everybody for the most part is on Instagram. You don't have to share your public facing phone numbers or anything, or private numbers rather. Okay, well, we did that, worked fantastically. Even other camp counselors were doing the same thing. They'd be like, Dana, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm doing this with my group. And they'd be like, this is great. I'm stealing that idea. I'm like, great. If you're stealing that idea, it will only benefit the whole, right? You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's awesome. But what I found is that you start to go layers deep with the people that you're around, and nobody felt inferior or superior, you know what I'm saying, to one another. It was just like, if you didn't deal with an issue that somebody else dealt with, people would chime in and help. Now, my biggest thing is to be, and I think this was probably one of the greatest examples where I could actively put to work servant leadership. That was my whole thing about serving. So when people, Anna Hill of the Anna and Fulgen's show, creative building blocks, that is on Ecamm's YouTube channel. When Anna was there, she was doing headshots. When we got to that session, it was them, Anna and Fulgens, and it was with Marshall Fox. And so it's doing headshots and stuff like that. But I'm thinking the day before, which I took all the stuff with me, I'm like, they have to take headshots so everybody can have a pro headshot. Even I took some, which I think they look amazing. I can't wait to share those. And I'm like, okay, we got a lot of people to wear glasses. Let me make sure everybody has something to clean their glasses with. So I used the Zeiss lens wipes that are disposable, slightly moistened. And so I gave those out to everybody if they wore glasses or something like that. And so I'm thinking about the things that they need, help with. I share all those little things that I was doing because I got to have a lot of great private conversations, not just with people that were in my cabin and on my team, but the people that just knew of me, have followed my content or what have you, and had some really meaningful conversations and create some accountability on the things that should be coming next, the things that they need help with, or just encouraging and believing in their goals, their future, and their vision. And something like that, to just have that accountability, for me, it was like a one-to-one thing for some people, or it may have been a group of us sitting around in a group or whatever. And so having time to talk and share and just be real, open and honest about some of that stuff. I haven't had that at too many events, really. It's like on one hand, I could count, and we're not even going to use all the fingers, for what kind of value that's really been. And so the power of accountability is super strong because it's not just saying it to a friend, saying it to a cousin, saying it to, whatever, putting it out there. But really, I think for a content creating entrepreneur, the best way to make sure you don't get into creative blocks, some blocks are things you may create yourself, and other blocks may be things that are real issues, things that you have to address coming from external circumstances that are outside of your control, but you still have to deal with. It's great to connect with people that are in the same vein of work that you're doing, that understand what's required and the struggle and the work and the effort and the energies and all those things and what's required, and do that. And having people to stand shoulder to shoulder by to really help you. I know I've been super hesitant for real to do what has been something that has been a block for me. And starting in this episode, I'm going to be moving forward on all of those different ideas, stuff that I'm just like hee-hawing about, as they would say, and not really, you just kind of stutter stepping. In the Video Simplified membership community, I'm committing to building that. I'm committing to growing that. I'm committing to actually doing that versus just kind of housing courses and stuff in there. So if you want to get shoulder to shoulder with people that understand what it takes to get and be done and have access, not just to myself, but other fellow creators, go to videosimplified.live to get access to that membership community, because starting today, moving forward, the accountability is going to be there for you. Not just from myself, but other fellow creators, whomever decides to join. And we're going to be doing a small promotion. Links will be in the description and the show notes for that, so that you can get access to that. And If you join during this current promotion, then you'll get access to some of the existing courses and stuff that I've created that is already there for you. So if you need to dive in, you can do that. And I'll be putting my course, Building a Team course, that's already there. That will be discounted heavily because I think that's going to be a major point of freedom for a lot of people moving into 2024. And I want to make that transition as easy as possible by just covering the things that took, oh my gosh, so much money spent on figuring stuff out myself, hiring people, and just the experience of actually building a team. So I'm going to be doing that with those different promotions. And so the link to the landing page and all that will be down in the show notes. We can go to buildingateam.live if you want access to that course, or if you just want access to the membership community and our current promotion, go to videosimplified.live. When it comes to overcoming creative blocks so that you can still be consistent with the work that you're doing, I think it boils down to how committed are you really, really and truly. Not something that sounds good on paper or in public, or in a message, but to yourself, like on the inside. How much do you really believe in what you're doing? How much do you really care about what you're doing? How much do you believe in yourself and that it's possible to achieve what you say you want for real, for real? I think creative constipation is something you can definitely cure. And I think sometimes some of the creative blocks are things that are from ourselves. But more than that, I think it's something that doesn't even have to be a thing if you don't want it to be. Simply by taking some simple steps that I've talked about and recognizing in yourself when you run into things that are open loops. How can you start to close those? Maybe you're always late to your meetings or your calls. How can you change that? I used to have the same problem. I was like, what am I doing all the time? So I'm like, I needed a dedicated camera to stay hooked up. So that was always ready and set up. Didn't want to have to set up a tripod or take it from someplace. So that meant like getting a second tripod. Didn't want to have to take a microphone from another place. So getting a second one. So that closed the loop on the setup time. Maybe it's something like making coffee or whatever. So maybe I already have a cup made, or set a timer or a reminder. So 30, 40 minutes before you go do that then. And then you're free to deal with whatever 30 minutes till, because it don't take that long to make coffee. What are some other things that come up for you? And just as the week goes by, what are some open loops that you run into that you could close that start to progressively address and just kind of whittle away at sometimes the creative blocks that you have, or the things that are more of a blocker for you? That's what I'm going to leave it for this week's episode on the Video Simplified podcast. I know I've said this a lot, but I really want you to stop what you are doing and go and leave a rating or review for where you're listening to this podcast. You've been getting value out of this and you've never left a rating or review, or the last time you left one was like 12 or 18 months ago. It's okay. You can leave another one. I'm not going to hate on you. I would rather enjoy it. And I want to see more of those reviews on not just like the channel comments, stuff like that, but actually go to like Apple Podcasts, go into Spotify, wherever it is that you do, leave a rating and actually leave a review. If you can commit to doing that today, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. But as I love to end all of my episodes, the winds of life blows on us all, but it is how you set your sails. With that, guys, with passion, I'll see you on the next episode of the Video Simplified podcast. Take care. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode, but the value doesn't stop there. For more in-depth trainings, courses, and growing your brand using video, join the Video Simplified community at videosimplified.live.